The space station called Tender Light floated near a dying star. It was old and tired, just like the star it orbited. But inside its metal walls, life still moved. Children from many worlds waited there, hoping someone would come for them. Had worked on the station for 3 years. She was the only human on the night shift. The other workers, tall blue beings called, thought she was strange. They knew what humans were. Death, predators with eyes that faced forward, dangerous creatures from a planet that tried to kill everything on it. But this human did not act dangerous. She was small and soft-spoken. She spent her nights walking through the wards where the children slept. Sometimes she sang to them. The songs were in a language no one understood, but the children grew calm when they heard her voice. Never talked about why she came to Tender Light. She never talked about the daughter she had lost. Had been 5 years old when the sickness took her. That was 7 years ago now. 7 years of empty rooms and quiet mornings. 7 years of trying to find a reason to keep going. She found that reason in Ward 7. The Cubs arrived on a cold station night. 34 of them pulled from the wreckage of a colony ship. Raiders had attacked without warning. The adults had fought back, giving the children time to reach the escape pods. None of the adults survived. The Cubs were small, covered in soft gray fur. They had large golden eyes and tall ears that moved with their emotions. In culture, the pack was everything. Family meant survival. Without pack, it was nothing. Now these children had no pack at all. Was there when they arrived. She watched the workers guide them into Ward 7. The Cubs moved in a tight group, pressing against each other. Their ears were flat with fear. Some of them were crying, making soft sounds that broke heart. She wanted to help, but the supervisor stopped her. "Do not interfere," he said. "They must bond with their own kind. Cross-species contact will confuse them." Nodded and stepped back. She watched from the doorway as the Cubs were given beds and food. They ate little, they slept less. Days passed and the Cubs grew thinner, their eyes grew dull. On the 5th night, could not stay away any longer. She entered Ward 7 after the other workers had left. The room was dark and cold. Most of the Cubs were sleeping in piles, finding comfort in each other's warmth. But one Cub sat alone in the corner. Her name was, she was 4 years old, the youngest of the group. She had not spoken since her rescue. The other Cubs avoided her. In culture, grief was thought to spread like sickness. A Cub who grieved too much was left alone until they recovered. Was not recovering. Walked slowly across the room. She did not want to frighten the child. When she reached the corner, she sat down on the cold floor, not too close, not too far, just near enough that could feel she was not alone. Minutes passed, then hours. Did not speak, she did not try to touch the Cub. She simply sat there, breathing slowly, her presence steady and calm. Somewhere in the 3rd hour moved. It was small at first, a shift of her body, a turn of her head. Then slowly she leaned against side. Closed her eyes. She remembered another small body pressed against hers. Another child seeking comfort in the dark. The memory hurt, but she did not pull away. She stayed. After that night, returned to Ward 7 every chance she got. Her official shift ended in the morning, but she came back during her rest hours. She brought food she had traded her own rations to get. Safe fruits that tasted like the Cubs' home world. At first, the other Cubs watched her with fear. Humans were predators, everyone knew this. But this predator brought them food. She sat with them when they cried. She learned their names and remembered their stories. Was the eldest 12 years old. He had protected the younger Cubs during the attack. He had carried to the escape pod himself. Now he watched with careful eyes, trying to understand what she wanted. "Why does she come?" he asked the others. "She is not pack, she has no reason." No one had an answer. Learned gestures. She learned that ears pressed forward meant curiosity and ears flat meant fear. She learned that a slow tail wag meant trust and a stiff tail meant danger. She could not speak their language well, but she learned to understand. One evening, the station's power failed. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in deep red. To human eyes, it was annoying but not frightening. To eyes, it was terror. Red was the color of predator eyes on their home world. Red meant death was coming. The Cubs screamed. They ran in all directions, crashing into walls and each other. Their fear was so strong that could feel it in the air. She could not calm 34 panicking children. She was only one person, but she had to try. Began to sing. It was an old song, A lullaby her mother had sung to her, and she had sung too. The words were simple. The melody was slow, but there was something in it that cut through the chaos. A steadiness, a promise. One by one, the cubs stopped screaming. They turned toward the sound. They moved closer, drawn by something they could not name. When the lights returned to normal, was sitting on the floor. Cubs surrounded her on all sides, pressed against her legs and arms. Was in her lap, tiny clawed hands gripping her shirt. Stood nearby, his golden eyes wide. "You stayed," he said. "You were not afraid." Looked at him. "I was afraid, but you needed someone to be calm, so I was calm." His ears moved in confusion. "That is not how fear works." Smiled. It was a sad smile, full of things she could not explain. "For humans, it is." That night, something changed. The cubs began to see differently. She was not just a strange alien who brought them food. She was something more, something they did not have a word for. In the corner of the room, slept peacefully for the first time since the attack, and stayed watching over them all until the morning light came through the station windows. Weeks passed on the station. The dying star outside grew a little dimmer each day. Inside tender light, something unexpected was growing brighter. The cubs were changing. They still grieved. They still woke from nightmares, crying for parents who would never come. But they were eating again. They were playing again. And at the center of this change was a small human woman who refused to leave them alone. Had become part of their daily rhythm. She arrived each evening when the lights dimmed for the sleep cycle. She brought food, told stories, and sat with any cub who needed company. The workers watched with growing concern. This was not normal. This was not allowed. But they did not stop her. Something about the way the cubs responded made them hesitate. Had become unofficial translator. His standard was better than the other cubs, and he had appointed himself as their protector. He followed around the ward, asking questions. "Why do you not have cubs of your own?" he asked one evening. Was quiet for a long moment. She was braiding the fur of a young cub named, who had fallen asleep against her knee. "I had one," she finally said. "A daughter, her name was." "Where is she now?" "She died. She got very sick, and the doctors could not save her." His ears flattened. Among the speaking of the dead was done carefully. The grief could spread. "I am sorry," he said. "That is a great loss." Yes, his hands kept moving, gentle and steady. It still is." "Is that why you came here, to this station?" Looked at him. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. "I came because I needed to be useful. After died, I did not know what to do with myself. I had all this love and nowhere to put it. So I came here, to help children who needed someone. Thought about this for a long time." "You are strange," he finally said. "Humans are strange." Laughed. It was a soft sound, warm and tired. "Yes, we are." Had not spoken much since the night of the power failure, but she had started following everywhere. When sat beside her. When walked behind her. The other cubs noticed this and whispered among themselves. "She has claimed the human," said one day. "Look at how she follows her." "That is not possible," an older cub named argued. "You cannot claim someone outside your species. It is against the old laws." "Does not care about old laws," said quietly. "She cares about not being alone." The whispers continued, but no one tried to separate them. Even the workers had stopped interfering. There was something about the bond between the human and the small cub that felt right, even if it broke every rule they knew. One night was sitting with the cubs in the common area. She was telling them a story about Earth, the human home world. The cubs listened with wide eyes. Earth sounded terrifying to them. Oceans that could swallow cities, mountains that touched the sky, predators everywhere hunting everything. "How did humans survive?" asked. "Your world sounds like death." "It is," agreed. "Earth is very dangerous, but humans learned to work together. We formed groups, families, tribes. We took care of each other. The ones who stayed alone did not survive. The ones who helped each other lived." "Like packs," said. "Yes, like packs, but human packs are different. We do not only stay with our blood family, we adopt others, strangers, even animals. We bring them into our families and treat them as our own." The cubs looked confused. This was a strange idea. Among the pack was blood. You were born into your pack and you died with your pack. The idea of choosing your pack was foreign to them. Had been listening quietly. Now she spoke, her voice small but clear. "Do humans need packs?" The room went silent, all eyes turned to. She looked down at the small cub. His golden eyes were fixed on her face, waiting for an answer. This was not just a question about humans, understood that. This was a question about them, about what they were becoming. Reached out and gently touched Seer. The cub leaned into the touch. Humans need connection, said softly. We need to belong somewhere to someone, but we do not wait for packs to find us. We build them from whoever needs one. Seers perked forward. You can build a pack. Yes. From anyone. From anyone who wants to be part of it. Was quiet for a moment. Then she climbed into his lap and pressed her face against the human's chest. Her small body relaxed completely, all the tension draining away. I want to be part of yours, she whispered. Wrapped her arms around the cub. She thought of the empty space in her heart that had never healed. She thought of this small, frightened child who had lost everything and still found the courage to reach out. Then you are, said. You already are. Watched this from across the room. He did not fully understand what he was seeing, but he knew it was important. Something old was breaking, something new was being born. The other cubs felt it too. One by one they moved closer, not quite touching but near, part of the circle, part of whatever was forming around this strange human and the cub in her arms. That night, for the first time since their rescue, the cubs did not sleep in separate piles divided by age and status. They slept together, in one large group with at the center. The night supervisor walked past Ward 7 and stopped. He stared at the scene for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without saying a word. Some things were beyond rules, beyond laws, beyond understanding. Some things just were. And in the darkness of the station, surrounded by children who were not her species but were somehow becoming her family, slept peacefully for the first time in 7 years. News traveled fast in space. Faster than ships. Faster than light when the quantum relays were working. The story of a human woman bonding with alien orphans spread from tender light to a dozen stations, then 100, then more. Most species found it curious. Some found it disturbing. The remnant fleet found it unacceptable. Elder was one of the last surviving leaders of the people. She was old, her gray fur streaked with white, her golden eyes clouded with age and grief. She had lost 3 children in the war. She had lost her home world to climate collapse. She had lost nearly everything. The cubs on tender light were precious. They were the future of her dying species. And now she had received reports that they were bonding with a human, a predator, an outsider. She gathered a delegation of 12 officials and traveled to the station herself. The meeting room on tender light was cold and bare. Metal walls, metal floors, harsh lights that hurt eyes, stood at one end of the long table. Elder and her delegation stood at the other. You have been spending time with our cubs, Elder said. Her voice was calm, but her ears were pressed flat, a sign of anger barely contained. Yes, said simply. This is not acceptable. Pack bonds are sacred among our people. They cannot be formed with outsiders. You are contaminating our young. Looked at the elder, she saw the anger, but she also saw something else underneath. Fear, desperation. A mother who had lost too much and was trying to hold on to what remained. With respect, said, your cubs were dying. The delegation shifted uncomfortably. Elder's ears flickered. They were fed, they were sheltered, they were safe. They were alone. His voice was soft but steady. They had lost everyone they loved, their pack structure was destroyed, and your traditions told them to grieve separately, to avoid each other's pain. She paused. They were fatting away, not from hunger or sickness, from loneliness. And you took it upon yourself to fix this, one of the officials demanded. A human, a death. Someone had to, met his eyes without flinching. I was there. I could see what was happening. I could not stand by and watch children suffer when I had the power to help. Elder raised a hand, silencing her official. She studied with those clouded golden eyes. This human was small, soft, nothing like the warriors her people had heard stories about, and yet there was something in her, a strength that did not come from muscles or weapons. The cub, Elder said slowly, she has attached herself to you. Yes. In our culture, such attachment creates obligation. If you accept it, you become responsible for her. You become pack. Nodded, I understand. You would accept this, a burden that is not yours to carry. Something flickered across face. Pain, perhaps, or memory. She is not a burden, she is a child who needs someone, and I am someone who needs to be needed." The room fell silent. The officials exchanged glances. This was not the response they had expected. They had prepared arguments about species purity and cultural preservation. They had not prepared for this. Elder took a step forward, then another. She crossed the room until she stood directly in front of. Up close, the human seemed even smaller, fragile almost. "Why?" the elder asked quietly. "Why do you care what happens to children who are not your own?" Thought of small hands reaching up, of a voice saying "Mommy" for the last time. "Because I lost my daughter," she said. 7 years ago, she was 5 years old, and after she died, I thought I would never feel whole again. I thought the love I had for her would turn into poison inside me. Her voice cracked, but she continued. "Then I came here, I saw your cubs, they were so scared, so alone, and I realized that the love did not have to be poison, it could still be given to anyone who needed it." She looked up at Elder. "I cannot bring my daughter back, but I can make sure other children do not feel as alone as she felt in the end." Elder was silent for a long time. The officials behind her shifted restlessly, but she did not move. She simply stood there, looking at this strange human who spoke of love like it was something that could be shared across species. Finally, she spoke. "Among my people there is an old saying, 'Pack is blood and blood is life.' We believed this for thousands of years, but perhaps," she paused, her ears moving slowly, "perhaps we were wrong." The officials gasped. This was heresy from an elder. "Perhaps pack is not blood," Elder continued. "Perhaps pack is whoever stays when everyone else leaves. Perhaps pack is whoever sits with you in the dark until morning comes." She reached out and placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. The touch was gentle. "You stayed with our cubs. You sat with them in the dark. By any measure that matters, you are pack." Blinked back tears. "What does that mean for me, for them?" "It means we have a problem." Elder turned to face her delegation. "Our laws do not allow for this. Cross-species bonding is forbidden under galactic welfare codes. If we pursue custody of the cubs, we must break their bond with this human. It will hurt them deeply." "Then do not pursue custody," one official said. "Let the human keep them." "We cannot. They belong with their people." "But they have already chosen her." The argument continued for hours, listened but did not speak. She understood now that this was bigger than her. Bigger than 34 orphaned cubs. This was about what family meant, what pack meant, what love meant across the void of space and the differences between species. When the meeting finally ended, nothing had been decided. Elder looked exhausted. The officials looked frustrated. But something had shifted in the room. A door had been opened and it could not be closed again. As the delegation left, Elder stopped beside. "This will go to the Galactic Council," she said quietly. "They will decide what happens to the cubs and to you." Nodded, "I understand. I cannot promise you will keep them, but I can promise that I will tell the council what I saw here today." The elder's eyes softened. "You are a good mother, even to children who are not your own." She left before could respond. That night returned toward 7. The cubs gathered around her as always, unaware of the storm that was coming. Climbed into her lap and fell asleep immediately, trusting completely. Held her close and watched the stars through the window. Whatever came next, she would face it, for them, for herself. For the love that refused to die even when everything else had, the Galactic Welfare Council met on a station called Harmony Point. It floated at the center of known space, a neutral ground where all species could gather. 47 species sent representatives. Some came in person. Others appeared as holograms, their images flickering across the vast chamber. Had never seen so many different beings in one place. There were tall crystalline creatures that hummed when they moved, short, round beings covered in moss. Things with too many eyes and things with no eyes at all. The diversity of life in the galaxy was overwhelming. She stood at the center of the chamber, small and alone. But she was not truly alone. Beside her, holding her hand, was... The cub had refused to be separated from her, and after much argument, the council had allowed it. The chief arbiter was a crystalline being named Monde. His body was made of living crystal, shifting colors as he spoke. His voice echoed through the chamber like music. "We are gathered to discuss an unprecedented matter," Monde announced. "A human has formed bonding attachments with young. Current law forbids such cross-species bonding. The question before us is whether this law should be upheld or changed. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was old law, ancient law. It had stood for thousands of years. The human will now give testimony, Moaned continued. Speak truthfully and speak fully. The council will listen. Took a deep breath. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of faces watching her. Some were hostile, some were curious, some were completely unreadable. My name is, she began. I am human. 3 years ago, I came to Tender Light Station as a volunteer worker. I was assigned to care for orphaned children while they waited for placement with their own species. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humans have a reputation in this galaxy. We are called death, predators, dangerous creatures from a dangerous planet. All of this is true. Our world is harsh. Our evolution made us strong. But it also made us something else. The chamber was silent, waiting. Humans are pack bonders. We evolved in tribes, in families, in groups. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we took care of each other. When one of us fell, the others carried them. When a child was orphaned, another family took them in. This is how we survived. This is who we are. She looked down at, the cub's golden eyes were fixed on her face. When I met the cubs, they were broken. They had lost everything. Their families, their homes, their sense of safety. And they were being kept isolated because your laws said species should not mix. Shook her head slowly. But children do not understand laws. They only understand love. They only understand who stays with them when they are afraid. You claim to love these children? One representative interrupted. A predator loving prey. Love is not about predator and prey, replied calmly. Love is about choice. I chose to sit with when she was alone. I chose to sing to the cubs when they were afraid. I chose to stay night after night because they needed someone. And yes, I love them, all of them, not because they are human, not because they are children who needed a mother, and I am a mother who needed children. The chamber erupted in whispers. Moaned raised a crystalline hand for silence. You speak of need, he said. Explain this. His voice grew quieter. I had a daughter once. Her name was, she died when she was 5 years old. After that, I had so much love with nowhere to put it. It felt like carrying a weight that never got lighter. I thought it would crush me. She wiped her eyes but continued. Then I met these cubs, and I realized the love did not have to be a weight. It could be a gift, something I could give to others who needed it. Humans do this. We adopt, we foster, we take in strangers and make them family. It is not strange to us. It is survival. It is who we are. Moaned considered this. You speak for all humans. I speak for the ones I know, the ones who volunteer on stations like Tender Light, the ones who raise children that are not their own, the ones who cross the galaxy to help people they have never met. Straightened her shoulders. We are not perfect. We have made many mistakes, but this is one thing we got right. We love without limits. We build families from whoever needs one. The chamber was quiet, then a small voice spoke. I want to talk too. Everyone turned to look at. The cub was trembling, but she stepped forward on shaky legs. She looked impossibly small in the vast chamber. You may speak, Moan said gently. Took a deep breath. Her ears were flat with fear, but she did not run. I was scared, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the chamber's systems amplified it so everyone could hear. When the bad things happened, when everyone died, I thought I would be scared forever. I thought no one would ever come for me. The representatives leaned forward, listening. Then came, she did not look like Pack, she did not smell like home, but she sat with me in the dark, she did not leave. His voice grew stronger. Nobody else stayed, the other workers came and went. They followed rules, but broke rules to sit with me. She broke rules to bring us food. She broke rules because she cared. Turned to look at, her golden eyes were wet with tears. She says humans build packs from whoever needs one. I needed one. I needed someone to stay, she stayed. The cub faced the council again. That is what pack means. It does not matter what you look like. It does not matter where you come from. It matters if you stay when everything is dark and scary. It matters if you love someone when you do not have to. The chamber was completely silent. Is my pack finished? I do not care what your laws say. She is my mother now, and I am her daughter. Nothing you decide will change that. She walked back to and took her hand again, squeezed it gently, tears running down her face. Moaned was silent for a long moment. His crystalline body shifted through colors that no one could interpret. Finally, he spoke. The council will take time to consider all testimony. We will reconvene in 6 standard days with our decision." The chamber began to empty. Representatives filed out speaking in hushed tones. Many of them looked at and as they passed, some with suspicion, some with curiosity, some with something that looked almost like hope. Elder approached them as the chamber cleared. "You spoke well," she said to both of you. "Will it matter?" asked. Elder looked at, then back at. "I do not know, but I know this, whatever they decide, you have already changed something. The galaxy is watching a human fight for alien children as if they were her own. That image will stay with people. It will make them think." She placed a clawed hand on his head. "You are brave, little one. Your parents would be proud." Then she was gone. Knelt down and wrapped her arms around. The cub pressed against her, exhausted but somehow lighter. "Did I do good?" asked. "You did perfectly," whispered. "I am so proud of you." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the empty chamber, waiting for a decision that would shape the future of families across the galaxy. 6 days felt like 6 years. Stayed on Harmony Point, waiting for the council's decision. She was given a small room near the station's edge, with a window that looked out at the stars. Stayed with her. The other cubs remained on tender light, but they sent messages every day. Short notes filled with worry and hope. During those 6 days, something unexpected happened. Other humans came forward. It started with a woman named, an engineer on a mining station. She had raised 3 hatchlings after their nest was destroyed by a meteor. She had fought for years to keep them, even when the law said she could not. Then came a doctor named, who had treated children of 12 different species on a hospital ship. He told stories of patients who had no families, who he had stayed with through long nights, who called him father even though they looked nothing alike. Then came teachers and nurses and volunteers from across the galaxy. Humans who had crossed species lines to care for children who needed someone, hundreds of them, then thousands. The stories spread through the quantum networks. News channels picked them up. Suddenly everyone was talking about humans, not as death, not as predators, but as the species that would love anything, that would adopt anyone, that built families from whoever needed one. On the 6th day, was called back to the council chamber. It was even more crowded than before. Representatives had come from species that had not attended the first hearing. News drones floated near the ceiling, broadcasting to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Walked beside, her small hand gripping tight. Together, they made their way to the center of the chamber. Arbiter Moan's crystalline form glowed brighter than remembered. He waited until the chamber was completely silent before speaking. "This council has deliberated for 6 standard days," he announced. "We have reviewed testimony from the human and the cub. We have reviewed reports from Tender Light Station. We have reviewed the thousands of messages sent by other humans describing similar experiences." He paused. The silence was heavy. "Our findings are remarkable." A murmur ran through the chamber. Moaned raised a hand for quiet. "For this council has operated under the belief that species should remain separate, that children belong with their own kind, that cross-species bonding is dangerous and unnatural. This belief was based on the assumption that species could not truly understand each other, that the differences between us were too great to overcome." Moan turned to face and, "We were wronged." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted over each other, some in anger, some in disbelief, some in something that sounded like joy. Moan waited for the noise to die down. Humans possess a capacity for empathy that crosses all boundaries. Their pack bonding instinct is not limited by genetics, by appearance, or by origin. They adopt, they protect, they love without restriction. He paused. "This is not dangerous, this is a gift." Elder stepped forward from the delegation. "What does this mean for the cubs?" Moan turned his crystalline gaze toward her. "It means the law must change." The words hung in the air like something holy. "This council hereby recognizes cross-species adoption as legally valid across all member worlds. Children who have no family, no species to claim them, may be adopted by any being willing to care for them, regardless of species." Felt her knees go weak, squeezed her hand even. "There will be provisions," Moaned continued. "Requirements for cultural education, regular assessments to ensure the child's, support systems for adoptive families, but the fundamental principle is clear. A child belongs with whoever loves them. He turned to face the chamber. Let this be known as the precedent. From this day forward, love is the only criteria that matters. The chamber exploded into noise. Some representatives stormed out in protest. Others rushed forward to congratulate. News drones swooped lower, trying to capture everything. But did not notice any of it. She was kneeling on the floor, holding in her arms. The cub was crying, so was she. "We did it," whispered. "You are my mother now, for real." "I always was," said. "Now everyone else just knows it too." Elder approached them through the chaos. Her old eyes were wet with tears. "You have changed everything," she said. "Not just for the cubs, for all of us." Looked up at her. "I just wanted to keep my children." "You have done much more than that. You have shown the galaxy what love can be when it has no limits." The elder placed a clawed hand on his head, a gesture of deep respect. "The people thank you, I thank you." She turned and walked away before could respond. 3 months later, stood on the surface of a planet called New. It was a human colony world, but it had changed since the new laws passed. Now it welcomed families of all kinds. The house was small but warm. Cherry trees bloomed in the garden, pink petals falling like snow. Had planted them herself, using seeds modified to grow in alien soil. Inside the house, it was loud. Was in the kitchen, attempting to cook a dish while 3 younger cubs offered advice. Smoke was rising from a pan and someone was laughing. Sat on the porch beside, practicing human writing with a tablet. Her handwriting was messy, but she was improving every day. The cub said, not looking up from her work, "Yes. Do you think Mom and Dad would have liked you?" Was quiet for a moment, rarely talked about her birth parents. It was still too painful most of the time. "I hope so," finally said. "I know I would have liked them. Anyone who raised a daughter as brave as you must have been wonderful." Smiled. It was small, but it was real. "I think they would have," she said. "You are the kind of person who stays. They would have respected that." The smoke alarm went off inside the house. There was shouting, then laughter, then more shouting. Sighed and stood up to help. But before she went inside, she looked out at the garden, at the cherry trees blooming under an alien sun, at the world she was building with children who had been strangers until love made them family. 7 of the cubs from Ward 7 had chosen to stay with her. The others had found homes among their own people or with other families who had stepped forward after the law changed. All of them kept in touch. All of them were thriving. The precedent, they called it, the law that said love was enough, the law that changed the galaxy one family at a time. Had not planned any of this. She had only wanted to sit with a frightened child in the dark. She had only wanted to stay when everyone else left. But sometimes, that was all it took to change everything. Inside had put down her tablet and joined the chaos in the kitchen. Her laughter mixed with the others, bright and clear. Listened to it for a moment. Then she smiled and went inside to join her family. Her pack, the one she had built from whoever needed one.